Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Dave Deacon and we're coming to you from historic Gallagher-Ibo Arena, the epicenter of Roundup 2015. And as you can see, there's no 4-H'ers in the building right now. They're all across campus, meeting people, learning things, and just having a good time. And we'll have more on that later in the show. But right now, some words of wisdom on keeping your horses hydrated. Here's Lyndall Stout.
We're joined by Chris Heine, our Extension Equine Specialist. And Chris, the way I understand it, horses sweat a lot and they sweat differently than humans do. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. So horses can sweat at a rate that's much higher than humans. So they can sweat as much as 10 to 12 liters an hour. In addition, their sweat is either isotonic or hypotonic compared to their blood. So what that means, when we sweat, our blood gets higher in osmolarity, which is our stimulus to drink. Horses may not actually get that same stimulus, so they may need the water, but they may not actually be thirsty.
So what can we do to get them to drink water on these hot July and August days when we know they need it?
Probably the easiest thing to do is make sure water is always available. So I would always recommend, if you're going to hang buckets in their stalls, that you'd hang at least 2 buckets and fill them multiple times per day. Horses prefer to have larger reservoirs of water. So if you have automatic water that doesn't have a very high flow rate or a shallow reservoir, they may not actually get enough to drink at that time, lose interest, wander off, and not have drank as much as they should have.
So Joe here behind us is wanting to help out with this demonstration today. There's some ways to check a horse to see if it's dehydrated. Can you demonstrate on him?
So the easiest thing to do is actually to do something that's simply called a skin fold test. So you'd grab some skin on the horse's neck, pull up, and release. And so it should snap back rather quickly if the horse is well hydrated. The other thing we could do is look over their eye to see if it's rather sunken, or their eyes will get a little bit dull if the horse is actually dehydrated, or their gums may actually get a little bit tacky if we're looking at their mucous membranes.
So in addition to having water available, what other kind of things can we do?
The other critical thing is to make sure that they have enough salt. So horses, obviously, when they're sweating, still do lose a fair amount of salt. And so we typically would say a horse in the summer, when he's sweating a lot, is at least going to double his salt requirement. And if you're working him additionally and he has a higher sweating rate because he's exercising as well, that can sometimes almost go up to 3 times their normal requirement.
And some of these symptoms that you mentioned kind of go along with heat stress too?
Absolutely. So a horse can quickly become heat stressed if they don't have enough water to essentially keep sweating, but they can get heat stressed in a couple hours in these really high summer temperatures just from all the muscular work of exercise, or if they're on a trailer. So trailer doesn't have as much airflow normally, it's just being outside in the wind. Plus they have all that muscular work of balancing, which puts an additional heat load on them. So they can get heat stressed pretty quickly in those kind of conditions in the summer.
And you say some of this stuff is common sense things that you just do to keep them cool and to keep them hydrated. But at what point would a horse owner need to call the veterinarian? What kind of signs would the horse be exhibiting?
Well, if we're seeing a greatly increased heart rate, respiration rate, especially if your respiration rate is actually higher than your heart rate, that indicates that the horse is stressed. If he shows any sign of ataxia, kind of stumbling, incoordination, those are pretty severe signs of heat stress, and we'd want to actually get the vet to that horse as quickly as possible.
Okay, I think he likes you. Chris, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. The rain just keeps coming. Rain was back on the radar this week. A 2-day rainfall map from midday Monday to midday Wednesday has a lot of green on it. Those are places that received an inch or more of rain. Some of the Mesonet sites had heavy amounts of rain. Out west, Buffalo recorded 5 and 6400ths. To the east, Haskell collected 6 and 7200ths. Bright yellow represents 4 or more inches of rain on this map. Rain and clouds helped drop daytime highs across the northern 2/3 of the state. On Tuesday, highs north of a line from Sallisaw to Ada to Mangum were in the upper 70s to low 80s. With the rain moving out of the state Wednesday afternoon, afternoon high temperatures rebounded into the upper 80s and on up to the upper 90s across the state. Tipton in the southwest hit 100 degrees. Wednesday's high humidities added to the temperatures to make it feel even warmer. Walters and Ringling felt like 108, Ardmore and Waurika 107, Fort Cobb, Chickasha, Sulphur, Bowlegs, and Worcester 106. Lots of places felt like it was over 100 Wednesday afternoon. Here's Gary with some huge rainfall totals.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. Well, we're certainly back to our rainy ways, as Al mentioned. Now, that's going to make some very steamy days ahead, but it's better than the drought conditions we've had over the last several summers. Now, let's talk about that rainfall because we have some incredible stats to show you. The rainfall totals from the last 180 days from the Mesonet are phenomenal, especially across south central into east central Oklahoma. There's a large area in that part of the state with 35 to even more than 55 inches of rainfall. Now that's easily the wettest such period for that time frame since at least 1921, and we have a statewide average over that period of 33.2 inches. That's 13.3 inches above normal. Even more impressive are the totals over the last 365 days, with a large swath of southeastern Oklahoma covered by 50 inches to even more than 70 inches of rainfall. And that period is also the wettest since at least 1921, with an average of 47.3 inches, about 11 inches above normal. Now, south central Oklahoma over that time period is more than 22 inches above normal since the last year. So all this rainfall is adding up. We're very close to being on pace to beating our all-time wettest year on record, and that's 1957. So we're certainly in another horse race. Another record might fall. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
You may have a pond on your land and think that the fish are magically in there, but Marley, there's some maintenance that needs to be done to maintain the fish populations.
Right. You need to understand a little bit about how your pond works before you go purchasing something expensive that may or may not help improve the fishing in your pond. So I'm hoping to get people oriented towards our fact sheet series. There is good information out there. There is help out there that you can get on how to manage for sustainable good fishing in most every pond.
Now there's the new ponds, and then there's ponds that are already in use. Let's talk about a pond that's already been full of fish. It's not a good idea to just go buy fingerlings and put them in there. There's a lot more to it.
That's right. Most people think of fingerling stocking as step one. It's really something that most people should not be doing because these fingerlings are quite vulnerable to predation, and in most cases you're simply feeding the bass if you stock fingerlings on top of an existing bass population. So please don't do that unless you're told to do so by a fisheries biologist. There are several ways to go at managing a fish population in a pond, but you're absolutely right. You have to know what's there. If you don't know what's in your pond, you may have some troublemaker species that are really going to prevent good fishing and the development of good-sized catchable fish. Fish like bullheads, also known as mudcats. Hardly anybody likes those fish. And I have no problem educating people about the undesirability of those fish, but there are some other fish that people kind of like that I call spoilers, like the green sunfish.
Okay.
Good to catch, good to eat, but they outcompete the bass and when they're small and the bluegill for insects, and they predominate the pond. They get overpopulated and stunted. Green sunfish are not a good fish to have in your pond. The second fish that's even harder to convince people not to stock are crappie. Crappie are flavorful, fun to catch. Everybody loves crappie. They don't work in ponds because they have a tendency to explosively reproduce. You get lots and lots of stunted small crappie when they run out of food, and they can quickly run a pond out of food through their over-reproduction.
Marley, we're coming out of a drought. A lot of producers had fish and then in their ponds, and then the water went away. What should producers be thinking about if they want to reinstate a pond and fish?
If you've truly lost all the fish in your pond, you're 100% sure that there's no fish left in your pond, then you can probably consider stocking some fingerlings back in your pond. And I would recommend for most people in Oklahoma that they would stock first some bluegill and channel catfish fingerlings, wait several months, and follow up with a stocking of largemouth bass fingerlings after the bluegill have had a chance to begin establishing themselves, because they're the forage base, they're the food for those largemouth bass.
But a lot of people have an existing population of fish. How do people know how many fish are in there?
It's a matter of your catch record,
Right.
having a sense. And if you were a dedicated person who wanted to manage intensively and do the very best job possible, you would actually keep a record book, a fishing log. Every time you go fishing, you would measure the fish for their length, make a note about whether they're skinny or well-fed, and also how many minutes or whatever time it was that you took to how many fish you caught per hour while you were doing that. If you've got that kind of information, that's a treasure trove of information that you could sit down with a fisheries biologist, and after they had fainted because they'd never seen this before, they would probably recover and be able to give you a pretty accurate diagnosis of what's going on in your pond and what perhaps you need to harvest more of or less of, and just how to manage for better fishing or sustained good fishing in that particular pond.
Well, Marley, I tell you what, you guys have a lot of information on the web, fact sheets, a lot of other great information too. And we have a link to that on our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
In today's livestock market environment, cattle, of course, are very, very pricey, worth a lot of dollars. And that, of course, means that ranchers, cow-calf producers want to do what they can to protect those livestock against diseases. They will visit with their veterinarian, purchase some vaccine to take home and give to those cattle in order to try to head off the possibility of any debilitating disease that could hit their bottom line. Once you purchase that vaccine and take it home, then it's your responsibility, of course, to maintain the quality of that vaccine so that it does the job for which you've purchased it. And part of that, of course, is storing it correctly. There's a very interesting study done by our friend Dr. Tom Troxell at the University of Arkansas several years ago. He looked at refrigeration units that were used on farms and ranches in their state, about 240 of them, and he compared what the percentage of time that those refrigeration units kept the vaccines at the proper temperature. You'll see on the insert of most vaccines that they need to be between 2 and 7 degrees Celsius, and that calculates to 35 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature range we want to keep that vaccine. Well, what Dr. Troxell found was that only about 1 out of 4 of the refrigeration units that they looked at and studied kept that vaccine in that range 95% of the time. Perhaps even more disturbing was they found 24%, or again about 1 out of 4 of those units kept the vaccine in the proper temperature less than 5% of the time, hardly ever in the right range. So I suggest that you take a look at what the temperature is in the refrigeration unit that you're storing vaccines at home. Take the time and a little bit of expense and see what the temperature is in the refrigeration unit where you're storing it. I purchased this thermometer for less than $10 at one of our box stores here in Stillwater. And we see that this particular unit is running at about 39.5 degrees Fahrenheit, right in the middle of that range that we would like. Also, remember that in the dead of winter, if you have your refrigerator out in a barn, an outbuilding that's not protected from the elements, and when that temperature outside gets to be at 0 degrees or less, chances are the internal temperature where our vaccine is dipping below that critical 35, even below freezing 32 degrees. If you'd like to learn more about storing vaccines and even maintenance of the refrigeration unit that you have on your operation, I really encourage you to go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. Look under show links, and we've got a link there to the Arkansas fact sheet that does a great job of describing how to properly store vaccines and care of refrigeration units on your farm or ranch. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Just a reminder that coming up next month is the Oklahoma Irrigation Conference. With more information, here's Oklahoma State's Randy Bowman.
We have the second annual Oklahoma Irrigation Conference coming up on August 18th at the Technology Center there at Fort Cobb. I think there's going to be a lot of good information, and even though we don't have the drought in our face right now, I think all of us that have emerged from that are mindful of what can happen, and we're going to be looking over our shoulder to kind of see what we might do to fine-tune our management, maybe make our water go a little bit further, perhaps learn a little bit more about salinity, and just, state-of-the-art irrigation systems. So I think that it would be well worth an irrigator's time and effort to get to Fort Cobb on August 18th, because I believe there's going to be a lot of great information exchanged there. We're going to have some specialists coming in from not only our folks from Oklahoma State, we're going to have folks come in from Kansas State University and also from Texas A&M out of the Plains, and I just think that it'll be a very, very meaningful and informative day for those that can make it.
And for more information about the Oklahoma Irrigation Conference, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Joining us now is Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist. And Kim, the way I understand it, it's been a rough couple of weeks for wheat prices.
Okay, as we go through these prices, let's remember that 5 marketing days is a week. You go back to June the 9th, the beginning of harvest, our cash price was around $5.23. 7 marketing days later, it was down 50 cents on June the 18th to $4.73. Another 8 marketing days down to June the 30th, the price had increased 99 cents to $5.72. You go another 15 days, marketing days, 3 weeks to July the 22nd, that price had fallen $1.05 to $4.67. Now you can go back to May and April, and probably going forward, you're seeing plus or minus 50 cents, plus or minus $1 in every 2 to 3 week period. And so it's tough, to get a handle on these prices.
A bit of a roller coaster. Where do you think prices will go from here?
Well, we're watching the KC September contract price. Of course, we know that it's fallen off the last 2-3 weeks. Right now, you look at the range that it's been trading in, $4.95 to $6.11. Right now, the contract price has support at $5.06. If it breaks 506, then the next target is $4.95. There's strong support at $4.95. If it breaks $4.95, then we're down into no man's land, and the next target would probably be $4.55. Now, if it turns and starts back up, then it's got resistance at $5.34. Breaks that, then $5.60.
What are some of the factors behind these prices and these changes?
Well, there's probably three main factors, and they're all interrelated, but we can talk first about the political and the financial situation. You know, Greece has had a big impact on it, and as the markets, the financial markets adjust, it impacts, where it forces them to pull money in and out of the commodities, the funds, which is the second deal. Also in that first sector, you got to put the value of the dollar. It's been going up. It's up around 97 points now, which is relatively high. Then there's the fundamental situation, the supply and demand conditions. We're probably about 55% of the world's 2015-16 crop has been harvested. So we've got a pretty big carryover. We've got an adequate amount of wheat. We're probably going to have a surplus of wheat according to expectations. And then you take the financial situation, the supply and demand situation. You've got the funds, billions of dollars moving in and out of the market, and that gets you big price moves.
And then finally, with all this in mind, word of advice for producers.
Well, basically, when you've got things like this impacting the market, you're not going to be able to predict where the price is going to go up or how low it's going to go or how high it's going to go. Just don't sell it all at once. You know, plan your selling time period, put the final date, calendar date down on which you want to get everything sold, and then just stagger it through that time period, selling a little bit at a time. Dollar cost averaging, I think that's the only way to do it.
All righty, Kim Anderson, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. We're talking about business plans today with Rodney Holcomb, a food industry economist here at the Food and Ag Products Center. And Rodney, simply put, why do businesses need a plan?
Most people think the only reason you need a business plan is if you're going to go to the bank and ask for money, or if you're going to apply for a grant from some government agency. But it's much more than that. The business plan it shows that you've done your homework, and it shows that you've thought about what needs to be done to operate the business, when it needs to be done, and how you're going to make things happen. Much in the same way for your own household, you would have a household budget. You would have insurance policies to make sure that you're taken care of and that all your assets are protected. This is the same thing, just extended from the individual or the household to the business.
And then in terms of how it benefits you as a business, it can help internally as well as with those external clients. Explain that.
Right. A business plan is good for you internally, just as a business manager or owner. If it's a small business, it's good for you to say, this is what I said I was going to do 2 years ago. Now I can go back and periodically check, and am I meeting my goals? Am I meeting my benchmarks? But also, if you have employees, a business plan is a good way to get all the employees together and understand the company's mission and goals as well. But also, if you're selling products or providing services, your buyers, your customers may want to see that business plan so that they know what your plans are, what your goals are, what you're trying to do.
Okay. And then in terms of what a business plan covers, what kind of things are on that checklist?
Yeah. Obviously, you're going to have your goals and your mission and your objectives, but it also includes information on how you're going to make that product or provide that service. What are all the steps that go into providing this product or good for the public, and how you're going to ensure quality and consistency, which is a very big one in the food business. That's always a big part of it. Your personnel needs, what people are required to make the business function the way it needs to function, and of course the big one, the number crunching, some financial analysis. Am I going to make money or am I going to lose money, and when does the money come in, when does the money go out? And Murphy's Law applies to every aspect of business, so somewhere in there also needs to be some contingency plans. What I'll do if things don't go the way I hope they would.
And are there some templates available and guidelines I can follow for someone who may not be as familiar with what you've talked about?
You know, the great thing is the internet provides you many opportunities to go find free templates. The only thing those examples and templates don't provide, the financial analysis part. You still got to do your homework. You still have to do the number crunching. And for that purpose, we've provided a basic template for a food business so that it's just a spreadsheet. You can go to our website, download it, and play what if. Change numbers and see how it impacts profitability, cash flow, return on investment.
And that's sometimes the best way to figure things out, is just
Right.
to trial and error, I guess. Okay, Rodney, thanks a lot. And for a link to those templates that Rodney mentioned, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
This is the 94th year that 4-Hers from across the state of Oklahoma have made their way to Stillwater for Roundup. SUNUP's Melanie Jackson tells us why in 2015 they are building a legacy.
We've got 850 kids from around the state, all of our 4-H members, 14 years and older, and we're just here for a great time of learning and workshops and education and competitions and just great friendships.
The people and friends that I've met throughout 4-H, it's some of my best friends without a doubt, and the people who have affected my life the most have been through 4-H.
Oklahoma 4-H Roundup gives 4-Hers chances to experience once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, one of which is distracted driving safely.
It was very hard to do because, it's just, you can't see really where the cones are. You're seeing double. Everything's off from where they would normally be. Drinking and driving is harmful to the people around you and you as your person because it can cause death to many people or just yourself.
Without a doubt, workshops such as these, it's just helped me go out to our farm because we plant a lot of no-till wheat and things like that for the cattle, and it helped me to look at the land in a different perspective, and really see what it is and where the soil is and what grows, better in different places.
4-H is more than learning skills to use on the farm. It's also about discovering passions with new friends.
The stories that people tell of Roundup and the friendships that have made that have lasted for lifetimes. So yeah, we're really excited that these kids have the opportunity to meet kids from all around the state that have the same passions and excitement and goals and interests that they do, and to form those friendships and bonds.
Just a little something different. You can get out, and it's away from school, and you can get out and meet different people from different places, and that's the best thing about it. Getting out in your comfort zone every now and then is never going to hurt you.
Well, thank you for joining us this week on SUNUP. If there was something on the show that you'd like to learn more about, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu, and while you're there, check out our social media. I'm Dave Deacon, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.